More than 140 world leaders are descending on New York this week for the 80th United Nations General Assembly. The issue of Palestinian statehood and the nearly two-year-long war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza are likely to dominate discussions. France and Saudi Arabia will convene dozens of leaders to rally support for a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. On Sunday, the UK, Canada, Australia and Portugal formally recognized a Palestinian state, as Israel's intensified military operations in Gaza worsened the enclave's humanitarian crisis. But major obstacles remain. Israel has ruled out the establishment of a Palestinian state, while the US, its staunchest ally, criticized the recognitions as performative. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas himself will address the summit via video link after being denied a US visa. Toni Waterman is covering this story for CNA from New York. Toni, more nations are set to formally recognize Palestinian statehood today. What can we expect from today's summit, and will this renewed push for a two-state solution do anything for the ceasefire, for the war in Gaza?
The summit is going to be co-hosted by France and Saudi Arabia. They are going to bring together dozens of world leaders, and some of them, including France and Belgium and Luxembourg, are going to make their own formal declarations for Palestinian statehoods, and they're going to be joining more than two-thirds of the 193 UN member states that already recognize Palestinian statehood. Many of them have done so for decades. And, of course, as you mentioned, just on Sunday, just yesterday, we had Britain, Canada, Australia and Portugal also making their own declarations. And it's really hoped that with these Western powers now on board, that this is going to inject some new urgency in finding a two-state solution, bringing this war to an end, but also easing the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. France and Saudi Arabia have put forward this roadmap of sorts for Palestinian statehood, and it includes the immediate end to this war in Gaza, the return of all the hostages, and also requires Hamas to hand over power and lay down its arms. But as you said, there are many obstacles to this plan, not least of which the United States. The president said in the UK during a state visit last week that he did not agree with this as a way to end this war. Trump, in his first term in office, did support a two-state solution, had even put forward a peace plan of his own. But after the October 7th massacre, he has become very anti-Palestinian, and his administration has denied the visas for the entire Palestinian delegation. So Mahmoud Abbas is going to be joining this summit via video conference. The real question here is whether, after decades and decades of trying to find a two-state solution, if getting these Western powers on board is the answer, or whether or not this ultimately proves to just be symbolic.
Right, Toni, apart from the Palestinian issue, what else is on the agenda for the UN this week?
We're expecting a lot of discussion around the other major global conflict right now, which, of course, is Russia's invasion into Ukraine. 3 years into the war at this point, Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, is going to be addressing the assembly. This is also an opportunity for him to try and rally support from global powers. Trump, of course, had that summit with Putin back in August in Alaska. There has not been a lot of headway that has happened since then. We are not expecting a lot of progress here in New York this week either. But again, this is an opportunity to rally support on the sidelines. There's also going to be an emergency Security Council meeting taking place on Monday, today, after we saw this incursion of Russian jets into Estonia's airspace just last week. There was also an incident earlier this month when drones went into the airspace of Poland and Romania. And this is seen as a continued and increasing provocation on NATO members. So there's going to be a lot of discussion around Russia's war in Ukraine this week.
And that was Toni Waterman covering this story for CNA from New York. Blake Sifton is covering this story for CNA from Tel Aviv. Blake, now Israel has stood firm on the opposition of a two-state solution to the issue. Now, the thing is this, the countries that are supporting, are formally recognizing Palestine as a state this time round are long-standing allies. We're talking about the UK, Canada, Australia. And this marks a significant break, a shift from long-standing foreign policy for these, countries towards Israel, to the two-state solution. How else is Israel responding to this?
Good evening. Israeli leaders across the political spectrum are reacting with outrage to this recognition and condemning it. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that a Palestinian state would endanger Israel's existence, and he has vowed to do everything he can to prevent that Palestinian state from ever coming into existence. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar called this recognition outrageous and immoral, and even centrist opposition leader Yair Lapid, who almost never agrees with the Benjamin Netanyahu government on anything, he said that this is a harmful step and a reward for terror. And the family members of the hostages held in captivity in Gaza, who are also no fans of the Netanyahu government, they have accused recognizing countries of turning a blind eye to the fact that 48 hostages remain in captivity. Now, apart from these words, apart from this condemnation, we are now waiting to see what kind of concrete steps Israel takes in response to this recognition, what kind of retaliation. Netanyahu has said that he will announce his response when he returns to Israel next week and after he has met with President Trump at the White House on Sunday. However, there is widespread speculation that the Netanyahu government may announce plans to annex parts of the West Bank in response to this. How much of the West Bank, which areas, of course, would be major questions. But it's being pushed by far-right members of his governing coalition. However, regional Arab states that Israel has normalization ties with, like the UAE, and countries that Israel wants to normalize ties with, like Saudi Arabia, they've called this a red line, the annexation of the West Bank, and they have strongly urged Netanyahu not to go ahead with this, saying it could have major implications for their relations.
And Blake, how have Palestinians reacted to the news that more countries are now recognizing Palestine as a state?
Well, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas said it's an important and necessary step toward achieving a just and lasting peace. Now, even though all of the countries who've announced that they're recognizing a Palestinian state have said that Hamas can play no part in that state, Hamas have called this development a victory. And as well, of course, everyday civilians, everyday people in Palestine across the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem, they are, of course, very happy that the world, more countries are now recognizing their dreams of statehood and aspirations for statehood. However, all eyes really are still on Gaza, and especially this Israeli offensive to seize and occupy Gaza City. Just today, since dawn, 26 more people were killed across Gaza, 22 killed in Gaza City specifically. The Israeli military says that now 550,000 civilians have fled Gaza City as this offensive gets underway. That's out of a population of 1 million people. Just today, a key hospital in Gaza City, the Jordanian hospital, their staff said that they received specific evacuation calls, and the Israeli military says that they are pushing into new areas deeper into Gaza and destroying Hamas infrastructure.
Right, Blake, thanks for that update. Blake Sifton there covering this story for CNA from Tel Aviv.